episode 483 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' bi-weekly podcast of many topics, usually of the retro variety. I will be your host today, Zach Wilkerson, and we're here to talk about a game that might not feel retro to you, but the original version of it came out almost 10 years ago. If you ever want to feel old, I'm here for you. So we're here today to talk about Persona 5, but we are specifically all playing through Persona 5 Royal. So our conversation will be about Persona 5 Royal, even though I think we all have some experience with the vanilla version of it, which we'll talk about in a moment here. But let me introduce the panel before we do that, starting with Audra Bowling.
Hello.
And the illustrious return of Mike Sollosi.
Good to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. You coming back for a Persona episode is something that I did see coming. I had to get the joke out of the way early. Anyway, so we're here to talk about Persona 5 Royal, but I know before we dive into that, I do want to talk about sort of our history with this game in its vanilla form, but also with the series in general, because I feel like this is sort of a series in two parts, even though they have some things in common between the two parts. So, Audra, why don't you tell us about your history with the Persona series? You can talk about SMT a little bit too if you want.
Sure. I've played a few SMT games, most notably Strange Journey Redux, which I enjoyed. And I've played both Persona 2 games and a version of P3 and P4, and I've attempted the vanilla version of P5 and got to pretty far into it, and then I kind of just time constraints gave up.
So yeah, time constraints give up is like a pretty good reason to drop this game. And I like that you decided to dive back in with an even longer version of it, which we'll talk more about.
I thought I wanted to try at least finishing one version of it.
Yeah,
your time is limited in game, and it challenges your time limitations in real life.
Yes.
There's something weirdly meta about that. That's true. Sollosi, I know you're a bit of a Persona fiend, so why don't you talk to us about your history with the series?
Oh boy, I'll try to keep this abridged. I played Persona 1 around 2000 and hated it. Played Persona 2 Eternal Punishment a few years later, and I thought it was better than Persona 1, but I found it very confusing, so I abandoned it. Then fast forward several years, in 2011 or 2012, I finally try Persona 3. I get obsessed. I play Persona 4. I'm even more obsessed. I play versions of those two games, I think 4 times each in the 2010s. And then all of their spin-offs to give you an idea of how Persona obsessed I was for about 6 or 7 years there. And then when Persona 5 comes out, I am as rabid as possible for that series. And I play it in its English language launch, beat it twice in a row for trophies and for New Game Plus, but have not touched it since. In the intervening 9 years or so, I played the Persona dancing games and the Q games on 3DS, but have been a little bit Persona burnt out in the 2020s. So this feels a bit like a homecoming, because this is a kind of game that appeals to me in a lot of ways in its structure. So it's like, I don't know, it's like a splash of clean water, like a river in a dry land.
My history with the series is weird. My very first Persona game actually was Persona 5, the original. I played it. I think it was like one of the first 2 games I bought a PlayStation that I played on my PlayStation 4. I kind of bought the PlayStation 4 around 2017, so that makes sense. And I think that this game was part of what pushed me to finally buy a Persona 4, to buy a PlayStation 4. And so I played through it. I had a really good time with it, but and as I will discuss, there are things about the modern Persona games that just like do not appeal to elements of my personality, and we'll get into that. But I still liked it enough that like I played all the way through it. I didn't platinum it because like I would have had to go through a second playthrough, and I had enough after the 100 hours of playing through it. But I didn't have enough of the series necessarily, so I go back pretty quickly after that, and I play Persona 4, which in some ways I kind of liked better, in some ways not as much, which we'll get into. I thought the storytelling was better in Persona 4, but the palaces are so cool in 5 that sort of overwhelms it. And then for the podcast, I actually go back and play Persona 2 Innocent Sin, and then eventually Eternal Punishment. And I got to say, I think Innocent Sin is my favorite of the series. And it's just because the storytelling is so strong in that game. and it really is thematically rich. Whereas this game, I feel like thematically is, I don't know, doesn't have any real idea of what it really wants to say sometimes, and whatever it is saying is like, I don't know, something my teenagers would probably think is deep. Um, but Eternal Punishment I liked a lot as well, and then eventually I played Persona 3 as well in the remade version of it. So for a person who just complained that he doesn't necessarily love the structure of Persona a lot of the time, I have played a lot of Persona. And I think it's partially because I've listened to this podcast well before I even joined the site. And because I respect Solosi's opinion so much, I was like, oh, I got to play some more Persona.
It really was probably my biggest game obsession of the 2010s. It's and I don't say that with pride, but I also went back and played Innocence and Eternal Punishment during that Persona Blitz period. But it's a series that I find very near and dear to my heart, both for the fantasy of, you know, battling your inner demons by battling outer demons, and the fantasy of a sort of a magical realism, urban fantasy in Japan. Like, for it's hard for me to articulate all of it, but a lot of things of Persona appeal to me a lot. But sometimes it does confuse its messaging with the later games, and we'll definitely talk about that soon.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's a pretty good description of what I do and don't like about it. But I guess to kind of take a broader approach to it. Those of you who haven't played Persona in a while, or maybe you're listening to this and you've never played Persona 5, which I'd recommend you go do. It's, despite my criticisms, which I'm sure I will level, to be very clear from the very opening here, like I really do enjoy my time with this. I had to crunch like 40 hours of this game in the last like 3.5 days, and I couldn't do that if I didn't enjoy it. So my criticisms will take them for what they're worth. But as Sollosi was sort of intimating there is a particular structure to at least the modern Persona games. You have, you're following, generally speaking, teenagers who are going to school, and they have to sort of navigate that along with then becoming these Persona users, which becomes like this sort of like inner version of themselves, where they have to like navigate dungeons because there's some like grander evil that is at stake here. And so you have to kind of navigate both that and then also just sort of normal school life. So you will have friends, and you have to decide like, who are you going to spend time with? You have to decide, how am I going to level up my social skills, my social abilities, so that I can do more of these things socially. You might have some other activities you can do as well. I think that this game does that pretty well. And then I think that, and I know this is a controversial take, but I think Metaphor has a lot of DNA here, and it's one of the things I like about Metaphor is they allow you to sort of vary it even more. But it's very much a game of structure, about making decisions about what you do with your time, being intentional with your time. You have limited time to do certain things, and so you have to decide all the time, like, how can I make the best use of my time to either level up my characters or level up my social skills and things like that. I think I've covered what it is from a broad perspective. Is there anything I'm missing there?
I don't think it's possible to be a Japanese high school student without studying your ass off. And that's something you do in this game. You just sometimes spend days at home studying. And that's
Yes.
and the when you're in the non-persona parts of this game, when you're not battling demons or entering people's mind palaces, it really does feel like a slice of life anime, just going to school, hanging out with your friends. Um uh like learning about each character's drama and struggle, and that part is fun, and the writing for those segments is mostly good. But the way that the game presents it, uh it's all within this very structured environment, which is and I think this is just a difference between you and I, Zach, because I do try to structure my life a lot. Like I have spreadsheets for budget, and for what games I want to play next, and for and just for like scheduling my month out, because if I don't do that, then I will accomplish most like a small percentage of that. So having a calendar mechanic where you sort of try to optimize your activities on a calendar appeals to me at some level. But you sort of like living a little bit more spontaneously, and that's good for you, of course. But in a context of Persona, if you just sort of handle things spontaneously, then
Right.
you'll then you'll be playing the game suboptimally sometimes. and that's a bit at odds. I think the designers want players to do what they want, but the problem is that can punish players sometimes. And a lot of people have a gamer mindset. I should try to play efficiently so the game is not harder, so I'm not making it harder for myself. And those two feelings can be at odds. And I think that's one fundamental flaw with Personas 3 through 5.
I can see that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a really good way of putting it. I mean, for context, after this recording is over, I think I'm going to go see a movie, maybe, but I might not feel like it afterwards, and I'm okay with that. And I think that part of it is that, like, in my job, like, it's I have to be, and this is not, again, this is not my natural way of being. I have to be extremely structured. It's actually one of the hardest parts of being a teacher for me, is like I have to know like what I'm doing like in 3 weeks, and I just like want to kind of like vibe. And I realized very early on that like that does not work for me. This morning, I was like, I probably should have graded some papers, but instead, I decided to play some Persona, and I had a good time doing that. And so, I think that one of the things about sort of the natural rhythms of any Persona game, and I think or I love the modern Persona games, is that I think that so often it's like it's all about a purpose, right? Like there is nothing you do in a Persona 5 that is not like to level up your social link, which then levels up your stats probably in some way, or your ability to get do well in a fight, or you are watching ICU. I love like the one of the things my favorite things about this game is like the localizers just having fun with like the names of things that you're reading
Oh
or
yeah,
watching. What
the
was it?
movies.
Guy Mikver?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The movies. There's a Like a Dragon movie that Makoto wants to see. The retro
Yeah.
video games you can buy. Oh, one of them is, I think, Fighter Instinct, which is a reference to the old Atlas bad fighting game Power Instinct. There's Punch Ouch for instead of Punch Out. It's the localizers had a lot of fun making up their own sort of fictional entertainment within this universe.
Yeah, and I love all that, but then, like, I'm not watching a movie so that I get smarter. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not doing it to level up my social stats. I'm doing it because I just like doing it. I mean, there's some exceptions to that, like, I'm kind of a movie guy, so, like, if I know, like, a movie is nominated for an Academy Award, I will do that, but that's not generally how my brain functions. And so I think that is part of it. I think the other part of it too is that I think the social link structure of it, like the writing is fine, but like there's so much of it. Like I don't know, I don't remember how many confidants you have that you've unlocked so far, but it's like the ones that you actually have to sort of like take care of are like one, two. I'm just counting the ones that we have on this list here. I think it's like
Well,
13.
there's going to be a total of 21 because there's
Yeah,
22 major arcana, and all of them except for the world have a confidant, which is they're called social links in Persona 3 and 4. So we're probably going to say confidant and social link interchangeably.
yeah,
Three of them level up automatically, so that's 18 that you have to at least semi manage. I think two of them will level up every time, no matter
yeah.
what
Sun
you have
seems
equipped.
to the politician.
Yeah, yeah. It's Moon and Sun. It's
Okay,
Mishima and Yoshida. But but the other 16 require careful manipulation, and there is an optimal way to respond to each dialogue piece, which
right.
again removes some of the freedom that you want. Like
Hmm.
gamers will want to pick the right option. So
Mhm.
that
They
so
maximize their chance
yeah,
of
yeah,
increasing it.
exactly, and maximize their chance of gaining the of not wasting days. So again, that puts like they want. I think the designers want people to play it how they want, but then having an optimal path that many players will want to follow removes some of that freedom a little
Yeah.
bit. Again, it's a design structure that appeals to me a lot, but sometimes it's at odds with itself.
Yeah, I think at odds with itself is a good way of putting it, and I think that one other thing about the confidants is that, well, first of all, I think that like almost every confidant relationship, you end up, and this is not as bad here as it was, like let's say in Persona 3, where I was like, oh my gosh, like I just have to literally just say like you're the best over and over and over
Oh
again
god,
to be friends with you.
Kenji's confidant in Persona 3, the your dweeb friend that's in love with a teacher, is like
Yeah,
is like the worst person, and you just have to agree with his bad opinions and ideas over and over. And they've
yeah.
gotten more nuanced and textured since Persona 3. In fact, I think Mishima is kind of a better version of Kenji, if anything.
Yeah.
Yes, Mishima is gonna say him for the.
Yeah, Mishima's got some eye rolling uh, dialogue sequences, but he's not as bad as Kenji.
Yeah,
But
and they actually he kind of repairs himself later on.
yeah, no, he's like a Kenji that redeems himself, if anything,
Yeah.
because he is your sort of dweeby friend from class, but he has a real story role and he does undergo growth, and
Mhm.
and he's much more likable at the end than at the start of his confidant, and generally I think that's true for most of these. Like it's like they've gotten better, or at least more self aware of confidant writing from Personas 3 through 5, and which of those games has your favorite social links is of course very subjective, but in Persona 5 I think they really try to give each character an arc. They many of them have some kind of struggle to overcome. One of the underlying themes of Persona 5 is that is that the world is stacked against people trying to do good most of the time, and they and they create catharsis by having this phantom thief storyline where you can punish evildoers that are taking advantage of ordinary people. So like almost every one of these confidants is a well-meaning person trying to do the right thing, but there are odds stacked against them in their personal
Mhm.
lives.
Well,
And
yeah. Go ahead, I'm
I'm, I'm,
sorry.
I'm probably speaking about this too early, but yeah, like the confidant writing I think is good in Persona 5, and it's more, and every single confidant is attached to gameplay, which was not true in Personas 3 or 4. So that's
Mhm.
that's another, part of the feedback loop of this game, obvious, like always sort of ping-ponging back between the dialogue and the gameplay. So it's definitely an evolution of what happened to Persona 4, but it's just a lot. There's so I mean 21 dialogue driven side quests with a lot of reading, on top of a game that already plays like a visual novel sometimes with its cutscenes. I think the estimates are for Persona 5 Royal is around 120 to 130 hours of gameplay, and a huge amount of that is reading. So if
Mhm.
you're the kind of player that gets a little bit bored by lengthy cutscenes or a lot of in-game reading, this is a bit of a caveat emptor.
To get to a royal adjustment, and I'm pretty sure this is an adjustment in royal. I don't remember this in vanilla, but every time you are done with a confidant relationship, somehow they know exactly when you're about to walk in your door,
Oh yes.
to go
Yes.
back to home, and that's new, right?
Correct. They give you get an extra line of dialogue with every single stage of a confidant. So, say 7 or 8 more lines per confidant, and that gives you an opportunity to score more points to level it up faster. But also, it's just, I mean,
They don't say
it,
anything new. It's just
no,
like
it's
repetition.
It's
they're
basically
like,
like,
hey,
hey,
about what we
thanks
talked
for
about
the
before,
yeah.
we're good, right? It's like it's just like again, it's 7 or 8 extra lines of filler dialogue per confidant, and there's 21 of them, so it's uh, so Persona 5 Royal adds a lot, and sometimes what they add feels good, and sometimes it's like, did we really need this?
Yeah, I think that is probably the number one thing, and I don't wanna get too far into, like, the storytelling. I guess we can kinda talk about it. Like, one of my biggest problems with the storytelling in general in this game is that it just likes to repeat itself a lot. And so I find myself, like, half the time, especially since I've been on a time crunch, like, if I know what they're talking about is something that I've already heard, whether it's in a confidant relationship or it's, like, them talking about, like, whose heart they're gonna go steal and, like, them waiting and, like, "Oh, did you find anything out?" Ren, sort of the canon name. And then I'm like, let me send you a text about it. Although weirdly, like he never sends texts, he never initiates conversations ever. It seems
Yeah, he
like
only responds to others. That's
he
true.
responds to others, even when he has something important to say, which I respect that. But yeah, it's just like I feel like you didn't need to add additional repetition to a game that already has a problem with repetition.
Yeah, they're always self-recapping or repeating themselves to what the next step is. And I mean, there it was almost a meme in the days of vanilla Persona 5 where Morgana was always telling you to go to sleep because because during sort of story segments or investigation segments, they would have you not do any nighttime activities, and that's just something that changed in Royal. That you have more free nights and more things to do in the evening phases, but it's like, well, here's what we're doing next. Here's what's already happened. Now you need to go directly to sleep, and just that multiple days and in-game days in a row sometimes, and it's very frustrating. It's like they're always assuming that players of the game are coming back to it after a week off. When that's not the case for most of us, especially if you're binging this like many of us are. I knew how long this game was, and I know my limits schedule wise, so I started this playthrough, not joking, 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I feel like that was a wise decision, because I'm probably in a more comfortable part of the game than you guys are for finishing part 2 in time for part 2.
I agree. I think I might be a little more than Zach, but not by much. I think I just did the 4th dungeon.
Yeah, and I'm just about to do it, so we're not too far off of each other.
But I actually finished the 7th palace.
Yeah, that's so we are not the same.
We're behind.
Yes, and I think that you get to something important about just sort of like, this is not even necessarily Persona 5 specific, Sollosi, but the way that your experiences can change when you have to binge something, as opposed to like when you can just kind of do it at a steadier pace. Because this happens in reviewing a lot too, right? Where it's just like, oh my gosh, and like it just changes your perspective on it. And so I wonder sometimes, and I also have sort of an obsessive personality sometimes too, whereas like maybe if I wasn't playing it so quickly, I wouldn't be so frustrated by the amount of just like, let me tell you more about the thing that we just talked about yesterday or earlier today. So maybe I would feel that way more. I don't know.
There's definitely a difference when you have to do something in a quick amount of time than if you can like take breaks and do it more leisurely.
I am playing it more leisurely, and I am so frustrated by some of this structure. So, but it's probably worse if you're playing this under a crunch. That's true of a lot of games, and all of us are very familiar with trying to finish games in time for a podcast recording. So we've all been there at least a little bit.
Yes.
We're talking a lot about the confidant relationship. Some of my early favorites are the doctor one, which is just like so weird, and I really enjoy that. One of the new ones that I've really enjoyed so far is Kasumi's, because in Royal technically they add sort of 3 confidant relationships. So those of you who have only played vanilla, Akechi is I think it's an automatic one in the original one. He's that like sort of student journalist who, if you've played vanilla, you know his role in the story, at least what it is in vanilla. And then you have Kasumi, who's this gymnast who seems like there's something a little off about her. I don't really have a sense of what's going on, but she's, I think, a year behind you. And she's a gymnast who you sort of help through some of that. And then there's this counselor who shows up, who I find extremely suspicious, who's talking about like the pain in people's hearts. And I'm like, if this isn't like the new big bad, then I have never played a JRPG before. And I for the record, I don't know. But there was new confidants. I like Kasumi so far. I don't want to get too much into that, but I think that she's pretty good. I think that the counselor one, I'm like, I know that you're the bad guy. I'm pretty sure this is so super weird. Are you like an alien or something? I don't know, dude.
We also know that Kasumi's a new playable character because she does briefly show up in the intro to the game.
Oh yeah, yes. She does in this version.
So maybe an indication that she's not a bad person. I don't know, though. I really don't have a sense of what she's like, but I don't know. The doctor one I just find so totally ridiculous, and I have sort of a soft spot for the politician as well.
I like Torinosuke the politician because, again, this is a game where politics takes center stage eventually, and he is like the one like good person in this entire political setting, and he plays the role of sort of wise older guy that likes connecting with a young person in a non creepy way, but in general, like the people outside of your main team are all like, you to a degree you feel like you're using them because every one of them has something that they're teaching you or something that they're helping you with, but also they're generally well written enough that that I like doing most of them. There's none that I was rolling my eyes every time, like, oh, not this jerk again.
Hifumi's my
Kawakami,
favorite.
Oh, okay.
I roll my eyes at.
Oh, I also roll my eyes at Ichika. Oh yeah, the journalist a lot. The one
Yeah.
who drags you to a bar in Shinjuku.
Right.
And that again, I think that's literally Tenkaichi Street from the Yakuza series. So it's probably Kabukicho
And I
inside
don't remember
of
if you're
Shinjuku.
able to date her later or not, but I'm guessing the answer is
you
yes.
are. Mm-hmm.
Of course you are.
I think
But
there's
you do
11
meet
or 12
Lala with her.
There's 11 or 12 dating options in this game, I think, and I would say that some of them are appropriate, but I mean your mileage will vary on how okay or not okay the romances are in this game.
Kawakama being a dating possibility. I don't know what it is. It's just something I'm missing, and I know that, like, I really hate it when people are just like, "Oh, it's just Japanese culture. Get over it."
Well,
But is there really a thing like where it is okay for teachers to date students in Japan? I don't get
God,
it.
I hated in Trails of Cold Steel, and I did not like it
Oh,
here.
yeah.
yeah, and again, some listeners are going to be calling us prudes or whatever for this, but why does the first major arc of this game about like they're extremely clear on on teachers abusing students and how romantic interactions are inappropriate, and the power imbalance between a teacher and a student cannot like foster a good romantic relationship, like everything um about that first arc, and then like an hour after you finish that arc you can enter a blackmail-ish relationship with a different teacher, and it's like, why is this okay? How can they have Kawakami and Kamoshida's arcs right next to each other and say one is okay and one isn't? It's so weird, but again, it's like the messaging on these on the what Persona 5 wants to say about society in quotes, like it's sometimes at odds with itself.
I kind of see that with like Anne in general. Her
Yeah,
character too.
for some reason, like every person when they meet On for the first time turns into a wolf from a Tex Avery cartoon for some reason. It's
But
Yeah, I
then
think
they're
I'm
trying to
supposed to
say it's
laugh when all our
bad, and
friends are
it's
like
not
staring
good
at
that
her
they do
boobs,
that.
but I'm not.
it's supposed to be funny when everyone like is extra weird and horny around a 16 or 17-year-old. It's like like if it's not bad that she's attractive and that she is
Mhm.
and that she is targeted by a bad person, like that can be just part of the story, but again, she turns like every man around her into into, I don't know, from like the monkeys from the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's just it's not great.
No.
That's a good metaphor. I like that comparison. I mean, and I don't want to harp on that. I mean, like, this game is definitely weirdly horny about all kinds of things, but it is the teacher stuff that, like, I just, and like the adult student stuff that I really find hard to sort of stomach.
I guess it's like supposed to be about consent or something, but it's still, consent
Yeah.
versus non-consent. But I'm like, eh. Yeah.
That would be a better point than I think what they're actually making.
Mhm.
In that, I think it's like it's the way it reads to me is that it's okay when the younger person, when this teenager holds all of the power or most of the power, and but that's also, I don't know, I think it's also problematic. And
Yeah.
but when it happens with 4 or 5 of the confidants, they'll ask something to the main character. So, are you into older women? And I cannot hammer the thanks but no thanks button hard enough because
Yeah.
just because of how, again, I'm 40 years old, and just the idea of someone in their 20s dating a teenager to me is just like, you have nothing in common. This is a disaster. Get the hell away.
Yeah, I agree. But I agree with you, Sollosi. I think most of the confidants are pretty good. Audra, do you have any that you particularly liked before we move to maybe main story stuff?
I adored Hifumi in the vanilla version, and I think I'm leaning towards her possibly like being my date option in this
The
one.
Shogi
I
girl.
just thought she was fun. Yep. I thought she was like great, just like the whole imagination thing and how excited she gets about shogi, and then her mother, the storyline with her mother and having to deal with all of that. I thought she was just a really good, well done character outside of the inner circle.
I don't remember. I've unlocked that confidant relationship, but I haven't gone any further with it, so I don't remember it super well. But we can talk more about it next time.
I don't know if I should spoil this or not. I actually am entering a romantic relationship with her this time, because the first time I played the game, my favorite party member is Makoto, so I dated her.
Oh yes, I do
But
love her.
this time around, it's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try dating someone outside the party, because in a real life friend group, if two people start to date, and then that can sometimes change things, and it might be safest to just say, oh, I'm going out with a girl that goes to another school, or my girlfriend who lives in Canada, kind of thing, and that maybe just won't make me suspicious of the main story dialogue staying the same if I'm not dating Makoto on Haru or Futaba.
I
Also,
can see that.
I know Futaba is a very, very popular character, but she's like already almost codependent with you from the moment she meets you. So I do not ever think of her as a dating option. It's like, no,
Yeah, that seems.
this is a
I know that
problem.
she's not much younger than you, but like she just seems like it. I don't know.
Yeah, she's 15 or 16, and you are
Yeah,
16 or 17, and that's not a
yeah,
problem. But
yeah. It's
just
totally fine.
but again, like the way she already reacts to you is, I don't know. It does not read well to me.
I can see. I don't see her as like a little sibling or
Yes,
something.
yes,
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
more sibling than romantic partner.
Especially
Yeah, I
since they're
agree.
both like being raised by Sojiro at the moment.
Sojiro,
Or
now that's
sort
a
of.
great confidant, actually. I
Yes.
really like
Yeah,
Sojiro.
I do like Sojiro a lot.
he's just a great character in
He, he
general.
he's very comparable to Dojima from Persona 4, since both of them are middle-aged guys raising daughters as a single dad. But they have their own, they have plenty of things that make them different or unique. But in both cases, it's like, this is just a well-meaning, really likable older guy doing his best, and I like that a lot.
Yeah. Especially with all the like how it always goes into like horrid adults in the storyline. I'm like, okay. It's nice to
Yeah,
see some
actually having good
adults that
adult role
are
models
mhm.
like Torinosuke and Sojiro is refreshing, if anything.
Right. I mean, because this game, I mean, I feel like this is kind of getting into the main story a little bit here, which we might as well. Like, I feel like this game,
Only 30
unless
minutes in, we're gonna finally talk about the main story.
yeah, I mean, a lot of times I just hold it for like the second half, but we'll talk about it a little bit here. I think that the main story is interesting because as you know, those of you who've played this before, essentially you have all these people who have these basically a heart that needs to be stolen. So you go into this palace of their mind. And you have to go through, it's like a dungeon that you're going through. And then by the time you get to the end, you steal their treasure, which is whatever they sort of hold valuable, and that makes them change their mind entirely and they become a different person. That's a Cliff's Notes version of it, but I don't need to get into a lot of the details. But one of the things that I find sort of interesting about the storytelling in this game in general, and I think it's maybe accurate to the way that 16 and 17-year-olds see the world, is that unless you have a confidant relationship with an adult, like they are all like the worst person ever.
Yeah.
Like they all suck so bad. And eventually I get a little tired of it, of especially Ryuji just like shouting about how like everybody is like an a-hole and like these adults and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I understand that that's where it's coming from, but like at a certain point, like I start rolling my eyes at like just everyone's sucking so bad. And so I think that that obviously like that's part of what's happening with some of these palaces and mementos, and like the idea that like you are changing things as a teenager, but beyond just like rebellion as sort of a thematic pastiche, like I'm not really sure what this game is trying to say, because I think that one of the things I love about Persona 2 is that it really looks at that concept of the persona, of that other side of you. And like here, like what are the other sides of these characters? I don't know. That they're stronger than they think. I think Makoto's is maybe done a little better, and Futaba, which we'll talk more about next time, makes sense. But like with An or Ryuji or even Ren, who we don't really know, like what's the sort of flip side? So I think that everything's just kind of muddied to me as I play through it.
In Persona 2 and 4, it's very firmly rooted in the Carl Jung concept of the shadow, where it's an interior part of yourself that you do not wish to acknowledge but does exist. And in both of those games, like when you acknowledge your shadow, accept your shadow, it becomes you become a stronger person, a more self-actualized person as a result, and your shadow turns into your persona, which you can use to battle other shadows and personae. Which but that concept is not really acknowledged here. It's more like you like society is bad, adults are bad. If you but here are some persona powers to let you become an agent of change. So that's why every character's persona starts out as either a thief or a rebel from history or folklore, and eventually evolves into a trickster god from religion or mythology. Uh, so I think I see the concept they're going for, but because it's not rooted in in the shadow stuff from previous games, it's a little bit like where does this come from? It like why can only these they explain it in the end game a little bit, but it's not as firmly rooted in in a higher concept the way some other Persona games are, and I think that's a weakness. It's cool that you get these transformation sequences. Makoto is my favorite because I like the
Oh, that's
concept
so
of a
badass. I agree.
yeah,
Motorcycle
especially
with
since
like
she's
the
like an
nuclear power.
yeah, she's like an honor student who just is trying to do what's expected of her, and is feeling pressure from her sister and from the principal and from teachers. I was not a top honor student when I was in school, but like desiring to rebel against structure like that makes a lot of sense to me, and her just immediately like furrowing her brow and saying, "Yeah, give me the powers," and then turning into a Mad Max motorcycle rider was really satisfying. And again, like this comes from a sort of teen spirit of rebellion, like Zach was alluding to, I guess. And maybe I'd feel different about it if I played this game as a teenager when I was in my 30s, 9 years ago. Oh God, it was 9 years ago, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, I was in my early 30s when I played
We're right
Persona
around the
5 for the first
anniversary
time.
of when it released in Japan.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, it was 2016 in Japan,
Yeah.
and then 2017 worldwide. But
Mm.
so I know that they're trying to be this they're trying to sort of say like rebellion against an unjust institution is good, but it's and then they're rooting into Phantom Thief which is very popular in literature. The Maurice Leblanc, Arsène Lupin books were very popular in Japan. There's even a famous manga called Cat's Eye, which is a bunch of phantom thieves that work in a cafe by day and become thieves at night. It's quite good. It's the same author as City Hunter for any 80s manga fans out there. So this concept is probably more familiar to a Japanese audience than to an American audience. But again, I don't think they quite stick the landing on uniting concept to story in Persona 5, but maybe that's just because I miss some of the things that Personas 2, 3, and 4 did very well in this game.
It kind of reminded me of like Wild Arms 4, where they had like a lot of things about how you couldn't trust adults.
I've
when they were doing like the growing up narrative, and it was kind of almost so corny that it was like it just takes out of the narrative a little bit.
That's a gap in my resume. I've only played Wild Arms 1 and 3.
Oh, I've played 1, so
it's actually pretty fun despite that.
Okay.
But
I mean, I always wanted to love Wild Arms, but I've never like the idea of like fantasy meets Western is like totally my jam, but it's never really jived with me. But not here to talk about Wild Arms
Hex
as much as I would like
system.
to.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Wild Arms absolutely peaked with the opening theme song of Wild Arms 1, and then it was all downhill from there.
That opening theme everyone song has their opinions.
I'm just saying that opening theme is awesome. Okay,
I agree with that.
Like,
yes,
it's super great. Is the but the problem is like I don't like I didn't even I don't think I even finished the PS1 Wild Arms 1. That was a game a lot of people played while they were waiting for FF7.
Yeah.
Right, I played it after. Yeah. But I think in terms of the story though, I still think like from like a moment to moment like sort of like an arc to arc sort of basis. There are lots of things that really recommend it. We've already talked a little bit about, and we're just going to kind of talk about the first three a little bit here from a really broad perspective. Like the Kamoshida arc, while I don't think that An or Ryuji have some like persona awakening and realization of who they are, I do think that the Kamoshida arc is really good. I mean, it's obviously way over the top. Any teacher who acted like that, I'm guessing even in Japan, is going to lose their job. He's so slimy that like
Oh
you
yeah.
really want to get him. And especially
Mhm.
after the prologue, which is really compelling, I think too. Like I think it's a really good first arc. Although like I think the detectives probably should have figured out who the Phantom Thieves were a little bit quicker, given how every single one like sort of
They were involved
around it.
somehow.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that one's really strong
It
from the
doesn't help
villain
that Ryuji
perspective.
advertises being part of the Phantom Thieves in public spaces all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think the second arc, the villain is Madarame, I think is very, very evil, and
Yes.
really fascinating. And then I don't think that Kanashiro is interesting at all in the third arc, but I think Makoto is such a strong character, and she does have sort of a real persona awakening moment that I think that sort of carries that through. So I think I still think that like they're all compelling enough. I just wish that they didn't repeat themselves so often, and that they had maybe a little bit of something approaching nuance, where you have these people who are just so objectively evil that like I eventually get a little tired of it.
And I actually really like Yusuke in general as a character, like his whole
Mhm.
social link, and some of his scenes are just hilarious.
And his relationship with Yusuke's relationship with Madarame is very specific,
Hmm.
and is sort of exposing that to Yusuke becomes the beginning of his character arc. I didn't have a great impression of Yusuke at first, especially since
He grows
he
on you
yeah
there.
he's in the way too horny for on club at the beginning. But no, he does grow on you, and he is uh a really appealing character eventually. I think that maybe Madarame and Kaneshiro were designed after their palaces were, because Madarame is a museum, his palace is a museum, and Kaneshiro's is a bank. And I feel like the designers like, oh, we should make one dungeon a museum heist and one dungeon a bank heist when they were trying to plan the game out. And maybe the character concept came after that, because again, the palaces, the game is centered around 8 or 9 central dungeons called palaces. Each one is sort of the mind palace of a specific person that needs that becomes a target for the Phantom Thieves, so their hearts can change. But they're all like classic heist locations, uh, for the most part. I don't know if there's. Do you know any space station heist movies or books? Because that's the outlier there.
I can't think of one off the top of my
I
head.
cannot.
I mean, I guess you probably do
But
some heists and sort of do some heists in Mass Effect. I don't know. There's probably some
There,
sci-fi
there,
heist
there
stuff.
is there is a couple heist missions in Mass Effect, especially Mass Effect 2. But that one's like in a mansion that's in space. So it's like
That's true.
I don't know. Um, I should talk to you
I'm sure
about,
there's a
because
Doctor Who
you're playing
episode
those for the
about it.
first time now, aren't you?
I mean, I finished those a minute ago.
Oh, okay. And we should talk about them
Yeah,
later. But
yeah, for sure.
but yeah, like I think that in part, I'm not sure whether the characters came first or the gameplay design came first in all of these, but some of them, like Kaneshiro, is like, oh, we should do a bank heist episode. Who would be a good character to center that around? And maybe that was designed as an afterthought, because I mean, the palaces are very cool in this game.
hmm
They're not always super super interesting layout wise, but they're a far level above the dungeons in any previous Persona game, and sort of executing the plan, then the heist, then the final boss fight is really really stylishly done.
For all the negativity of what I've described, one thing that I really, really can't really find almost any fault in is the palaces and the combat and all that stuff, and just sort of like the general style of it. And I think that like the style of Persona is such a part of what Persona is doing, but I think here is where it sort of hits its peak. It takes care of what is my biggest criticism of both Persona 3 and Persona 4, and really I guess Persona 2 as well, where the dungeon design is either bland or horrifyingly bland, along with being horrifyingly frustrating to navigate because of their random encounters. Whereas here you have these palaces that are big and ornate, and you have all these movement options. And in Royal, they add a lot of things to the combat, but I think the palace navigation with the hook shot. I remember when I originally heard about it, I was like, oh, that means you're going to be able to move through the dungeons faster. And that is not true at all. What it just means is you have additional stuff to do in the dungeons. So it makes the dungeons just as long as they were before. But man, I think that navigating those dungeons and just like that with the style of the combat, we'll get more into the combat in a second here. Like all of it, just it feels so good and so fun, and it really does make you feel like you're a thief all the time. And like I think
And
the
the
opening
encouragement on
prologue,
stealthiness,
yeah,
too.
exactly. And the opening prologue is in that casino, like it's so compelling that it makes you want to see that casino for the rest of the game. And I remember the first time I played it, I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to see what that is. While I think the hookshot thing is maybe just kind of like a cheap trick that doesn't really add much, I don't really care because it's still just like another movement option that is fun.
Well, you know that every game gets is improved by a grappling hook. That's just a true fact. But the yeah, and I think that maybe we're underselling this a little bit. This game is just dripping with style and polish. There's like even when you win a regular battle, it immediately transitions into your team sort of running over to the next battle or to the next location. And the elements of the UI, whether it's a dialogue window or part of the menu, there's always something moving in it. Um which sometimes is even distracting. It's like, why is this arrow cursor shaking back and forth? Is that really necessary? But and even when you're skulking around a dungeon, like hiding behind cover to jump an enemy, there's like splashes of color with every step you take, and you do these huge dramatic ambush sequences whenever you get the jump on an enemy, and everything just feels very dynamic and stylish. Uh, for every part of the gameplay, even the very quiet parts of gameplay when you're just looking at your calendar, deciding who to hang out with. Um, it's just, I don't know. A lot of it is very sort of attention grabbing in a mostly good way. Uh, and yeah, the palaces are super cool. Like I'm not gonna, I have ones that I like more than others, of course, but they're all really at least cool RPG dungeon ideas and way
Very
better than
creative.
going 200 floors up Tartarus in Persona 3.
Yes.
Yeah, I think of the
Nice.
first three, if I had to pick a favorite, I would probably take Kamoshida's Castle, but I really like some of the gimmicks of the bank vault. I enjoy how you have to get the painting. I think that the maybe the museum is the most samey throughout, except for like those weird sequences that are sort of like connecting different areas of it. But I
Oh,
feel like
where
the
you have to go
castle
in the
is,
paintings.
yeah, I feel like the castle itself is just like such a compelling setting, and like mix that with like the way that like the different people throughout the dungeon are representations of the way that Kamoshida feels. It feels like the most like sort of like complete along with the character arc of the villain. And I guess you probably see Kamoshida a lot more than you see the other villains in these places too. So I don't know. I really like the castle sequence.
I think there's really three kinds of video game villains. There's the one that's just full of personality and drama and just comes across as very cool or fun. And then you have the one that's like so certain of their convictions that it maybe even makes you think, am I the villain here? And are they and is the villain right all along? And then there's the ones that just have a punchable face that it feels great to finally take them down. And I think that Kamoshida is like such a clear example of that third one, where from the get go he is hostile to you. He's abusing students. He is clearly horrible in his actions and his demeanor, and so that it's ultimately very satisfying to go to his castle, beat the tar out of him and then rip that crown off of his head. And so like thematically, I think that the dungeon is maybe the most consistent with the narrative and fits in the best. But I kind of like the bank because the idea um Kaneshiro viewing everyone in downtown Shibuya as walking ATMs that he can vacuum
Yeah,
money out of
it is clever.
is
Yes.
is very clever. And the second half of the bank dungeon has you like rearranging corridors to fit a lock mechanism in a way that's really cool to sort of see play out mechanically and visually, like sort of really just nailing a good Zelda dungeon or something. But again, I mean, none of the first three palaces are my favorite in the game. So there's like there's more to come that's really good as well.
Yeah, and that's saying something because I feel like in a lot of JRPGs, like the castle dungeon would be the best one. So again, like it's just like so much style. And I think the place where you see the style the most is definitely the combat, right? Like it's the combat here is so fluid and so fresh, and so like it's there's a plenty of RPGs where I get in fights and I just get tired of it, especially if it's a 120-hour game, which is what this is. But like I am never sad, even when I know I don't need to get into these fights because I'm over leveled or whatever. I am never sad to get in fights in this game, even though they're turn based and all that stuff. I mean, like there's so many like simple things about the combat that seem basic, but like the button presses to decide on your action just makes it cleaner, more efficient. Like the font sizes, the demon negotiation being added back in is like another
Oh
additional
yes.
layer to what you might have to do here.
Yeah,
So even talking about like the vanilla things, and they add a lot of stuff, which we'll get to in the into the royal version for combat, but just like the basic the rhythm of knocking enemies down, finding weaknesses, and taking that very strategic and oftentimes difficult SMT style. It's not press turn, obviously, but it's close, and turning it into something flashy and fun. Because I actually, it's funny, I played SMT5 like the first 15 hours of it, maybe like a month and a half ago, and I was like, yeah, this, I don't really love SMT. But man, Persona adds so much flash to it, to what is basically essentially the same thing, that like it feels like a totally different experience to me.
I think that maybe a platonic ideal of RPG combat is if you can make a turn-based system feel fast moving, that's about as good as it gets because like people will complain about the slowness of a turn-based system and then complain about the lack of strategy or the button mashiness of an action-heavy system. But
Hmm.
this is a turn-based system that gives you a ton of options and a ton of build variety and makes every single move like flashy and stylish, and it goes on to the and it blends into the next move very quickly. And there's enough mechanical nuance that you don't that there's more than one way to approach encounters very easily. Yeah, it's great RPG combat. Even if it's a little bit like eventually when you're playing this for hundreds of hours, like okay, what's the weakness of this guy? Let me equip the right persona for that. Bing bang boom, they're all knocked down. All out attack. Thank you very much. But again that's just when you that's at a point when you've close to mastered the system and and can do whatever is required for a specific battle. But really front to back, this is fast moving, stylish turn based combat, and that's about as good as it can get.
Oh, and then you have like stuff like the added flourishes like Showtime and Baton Pass and stuff, and that just adds a
Yeah.
little more flash and fun to it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's also like if you have a because I'm playing this game on hard mode this time just because I wanted something a little different. Because I remember playing through it even as a Persona novice and being like, normal. I kind of breeze through it. And by the time you get to like the third palace, you're starting to breeze through even on hard mode because you just have the tools in your kit to deal with things. Um, but in in the first dungeon when you don't have those tools in your kit, man, I think Kamoshida beat me like 9 times, getting one shot by like normal enemies. Like you have to engage with it almost perfectly. But then they add these other wrinkles like the Showtime attacks, which is this RNG sort of triggered thing where you do this big cutscene attack and it does like over
Oh
a
yeah,
thousand
the
damage.
tag team attacks. Yeah, those are new
Yeah.
to Royal. Then they're really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or and like for me, the technicals were really important because that was the only way I could knock a lot of enemies down before they killed me, which is usually you apply a status effect, which makes Makoto even more vital. Like for me, my party is Makoto, Ryuji, and An. And I know there's a new party member,
That's
but
my favorite party as well because
yeah, if
the way
if
the
they
way it
manage to
works is
overcome it.
that if an enemy has a physical status effect, so like burn or shock or freeze, then nuke attacks get a technical bonus on it. But if they have a mental status effect like sleep or fear, then psychic gets a technical status on that. But because Ryuji and An can inflict burn and shock really easily, it's very it's very easy to have Makoto get technicals all the time. And also Like Ryuji has Mataru Kaja, the best support move in the game. Makoto has a full heal. Ryuji and An can charge concentrate for big damage. It's again there it's 4 of the 6 first characters, so you can assemble it really early, but it's my favorite party
Yeah.
for basically the whole game.
There's also a passive on Makoto that makes it more likely for uh the like burn or shock to trigger.
Yep.
Like it's just like the synergy there is just like perfect. I'm like I don't know how I could think of a party that works with the way that I play these games more, especially when it is really important to get those knockdowns, because otherwise, like if you let enemies get turns, this is true against bosses or normal and hard mode, like there's a good possibility Joker is going to die. But part of the problem is that like as you go through and you do more social links, you just get so many more tools in your kit that eventually it becomes less of an issue.
I
So
think
I think the balancing is weird.
I think that's true for Personas 3, 4, and 5, where you start out the game at an even playing field with the enemies, or maybe the enemies are stronger than you. But if you're playing at least well enough, like maybe if you're deliberately avoiding gameplay that makes you stronger, but generally your party will get stronger at a much faster pace than the enemy scales in strength. So once you get to a midpoint of a Persona game, it usually gets much easier because you've gotten that much more powerful than your opponents. And I mean, I'm just thinking the final dungeon of Persona 4 is laughably easy because and that's a game I love, but because by then, especially if you've done the extra content in the golden version, you are like 15 levels above the average enemy level in that game.
That reminds me, something that I just got unlocked is on Kasumi's social link, and I haven't gotten a chance to use it yet. Like you're able to use your hook shot to get ambushes. And did I read correctly that it also like puts a status effect on the enemies immediately upon the start of that fight?
I think one enemy gets gets stunned if you do that,
Okay.
but it's
So you at least
if they're not immune to stun.
okay. So you that is extremely powerful because it allows you to start that baton pass going, which in this game is also more powerful because if you play darts with your other characters, then that powers up baton pass. Like there are just
And
so
you
many
gain a little
ways
bit
to
of
do that.
HP and SP when you baton pass if you play darts with them a
Mhm.
couple times.
Yeah.
And also new to Royal, there's the Jazz Club, which allows your whoever you invite to the Jazz Club will get some permanent stat point increases and an opportunity to learn a new move that they normally can't. Which is how the first time I took Makoto to the Jazz Club, she learned Marakunda, the defense down move, which
Oh
your
man.
allies normally don't learn. And I'm like, oh no, now Makoto's even better. It's a shame she only has 8 move slots to give. But yeah,
That's broken.
they give
That's
you
broken.
the royal version gives you more things to do to make you even stronger. And there's no way that even if there's a 9th dungeon that's harder than the 8th dungeon, there's no way that the enemy will be able to outpace how good you are in this game. And especially if you're playing on normal, which is already kind of easy.
I mean, I think they did add some difficulty to some of these bosses to sort of mitigate some of that. Like, I'm pretty sure that the first 3 bosses that I fought all had, like, if not additional phases, but like additional wrinkles in the phases. And I don't know specifically what they are. But Alana was talking to me about it. She's like, I don't think that was in like those clones were in that second fight. I'm like, really? Because
Yeah,
that
the
would totally
second fight
change the flavor of
was
it.
just the different paintings with like the eye, mouth, and face.
Okay.
And the boss of the space station is significantly changed, and they're trying to teach you to you basically have to defeat hordes of enemies in a certain time frame, which you can easily do if you abuse baton passing a little bit. But it's basically they take the worst boss designs from vanilla and change them mostly for the better, I think. But again, it's been 9 years since I've played Persona 5, so I couldn't be perfectly remembering that. God, it has been
Yeah, I'm
9
not.
years, hasn't it? Ugh.
It has been, yeah, yeah. So it's a retro game. Yeah, I don't remember all the adjustments, but it's definitely helpful. But you know, one of the things that they have adjusted as well that I think is pretty much universally for the better is some of the additional stuff you get in Mementos. So those of you who haven't played this game for a while, Mementos is sort of like it's closer to a Tartarus in terms of a dungeon. It's where you're kind of going through and you're like changing, miniature hearts. I'll put it that way, where it's like, these aren't people who are bad enough to have their whole palace or have shadows that are powerful enough to need that whole palace, but they are sort of scattered throughout this sort of almost like constantly procedurally generated dungeon.
Yeah, it represents
Um,
the collective unconscious. So it's like
yeah,
Yeah.
so everyone's wishes and desires are sort of floating around in this psychic soup, I guess. I've joked before that it's Persona 3's Tartarus, but you go down instead of up.
I find it still a little bit more pleasant to navigate than Tartarus, just because you get that move with Ryuji that lets you like knock out lower level enemies. And I've only done one Mementos run. And it was like probably later than I should have, and I cleared out like 8 requests at once.
That's another change in Royal. In regular Persona 5, that move from Ryuji was basically the same, but it didn't give you money or experience. And
Oh
now
wow,
it does. So now your levels go up even higher if you're crashing around in the cat van with Ryuji.
yeah.
And then also,
That
I mean,
cash is important.
this
Go
game
ahead.
has many references. I mean, we could probably do a whole episode on just the Natsumi Soseki stuff with Morgana, who uses a weird Japanese pronoun that's also used in the book I Am a Cat. But when Morgana turns into a bus for the first time, she or he does the Kamen Rider 1971 henshin pose and
Oh, that's so
transforms.
fun.
So with if you get the references, which not everyone will, and I certainly miss a bunch. I'm sure of it. Persona 5 has a lot of fun wrinkles. There's a the main one of the main villains of Persona 5 really is certain in his convictions and wanting to change the world, even though he's clearly he's clearly fascist in his ideals. And that's similar to a famous character from Gundam named Char Aznable. And
Yes.
they got the original voice actor for Char in both English and Japanese to voice him, even though that Gundam series is from the late 80s, early 90s.
That's crazy.
So
I had
like
no idea.
yeah, there's just lots of little things. Again, like I mean, I Am a Cat is a book that I think all Japanese kids read in elementary or middle school. So Morgana using the Waga Hai pronoun, which is a really weird, like samurai ass outdated language, would not make sense unless and again the book is about a black cat. Would not make sense unless you know that, but that's a very common Japanese shared experience, is knowing that book. It would be like, I don't know, like if Morgana was a pig and made Animal Farm jokes all the time, would be like the equivalent for us. But there's
I
a
mean,
lot of
he even says like apparently people like it when cats turn into buses, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and
in Japanese
that's
culture.
a
I'm like, I
My
got
Neighbor
that.
Totoro thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
There's
or
that
a
what I
lot of
got.
references to
or
that.
is that a Doraemon thing?
I mean, it definitely happens in Totoro. I'm not
It might
sure.
also happen in Doraemon. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
Doraemon
I think
is
Doraemon it might happen in, yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you want to play a game that plays around with Doraemon, you've heard of a little title called Danganronpa. They got Doraemon's original voice actress, who had been retired from voice acting for 20 years or something, to play Monokuma in Danganronpa. So it's like, I don't know, it's like the equivalent of like resurrecting Mel Blanc from the dead and then making a popular video game star psychotic Bugs Bunny or something. Okay, maybe we can cut that out of the final.
No,
out of
we're
the
not
final
cutting
episode.
it. Not at all.
But yeah, but
That's the kind of stuff I miss from Retro Encounter.
yeah, but Persona 5 again has these concepts and messages that I think are sometimes successful and sometimes less successful, but then a lot of references and fun with ideas here and there that could go over your head if you aren't as aware of what they're doing. Again, and some of the things I've brought up were from me doing research after the fact. Like I saw the Kamen Rider Henshin thing immediately, but I didn't make the Char Aznable connection until it was pointed out to me by someone else. And there's just a lot of stuff here to engage with, and sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes the time limitations of the calendar system like limit that freedom, and in a way that we've talked about earlier in this episode. But overall, like as an RPG that's very structured in some ways and very open in other ways, that is just constantly surrounding you with choices and things to do. It's ultimately fun. Like again, I hadn't played a hardcore Persona game. I think since I last played Persona 5, unless Persona Q2 counts. So going back to this after a long break, really did feel like coming home a little bit. It's like, oh, I could plan out my calendar again. And oh, I need to fuse some guys, so I get the bonus dingalings when I talk to people in the confidant / social link. And oh, I have exams coming up in a week and a half, so I need to go study at the restaurant a little bit more. And I'm like, just little things like that were oddly very comforting to me as someone who was Persona obsessed in 10 plus years ago, and is now given the opportunity to fall back into one thanks to the podcast. And it also helps that I'm not planning episodes 3 months in advance anymore, and so I don't have thank you for absorbing that stressful part of the job, Zach.
It's not that bad yet, but I think that's because it's bi-weekly.
Yeah, that does help. I was driving myself a little crazy running a weekly show, being like, let's do one about joke weapons. Who can host this one? Like, is Peter available? Like, it would sometimes podcast planning is fun and sometimes it's less fun. But
Yes.
like
Depends on whether I have an idea that I really want to do at that moment or
That's
time
right.
or
It's
not.
like,
And if I'm digging for ideas, that's when I'm like, oh no.
yeah. So sometimes the our Slack or Discord chats about podcast planning get real weird. It's like have we done it, guys? Have we done an episode on I don't know, on bad games we love, and I'll be there to be like, yeah, we did it on this date in this month.
I made the joke that it's like
it's like the
you've ever
South
seen
Park.
the episode of the South
Yeah.
Park where they're like, oh, the Simpsons already did it. I'm like, dang it, Sollosi already did it. The
I
funny
think
part
that
about
episode
that
happened because Trey Parker and Matt Stone had an idea of Cartman blocking out the sun until they realized that Mr. Burns had already done that on The Simpsons. So that evolved into them making a Simpsons did it episode.
But the funny part about that idea is that like I was on that episode.
Oh, right.
I forgot too. It was like 300 episodes ago. So
That's
you
like
just never know.
that's like how the James Bond people accidentally made the two movies with the exact same plot as Thunderball.
I think that's a little less forgivable, but I understand.
Probably, yeah. Especially, I don't think those two movies were that far apart either. I'd have to check a list, but yeah, like this was an ideal opportunity for me to sort of fall back into the comfortable rhythm of a Persona game, but with now me being extremely aware of what works and what doesn't work about these games. So even if it sounds like we're raising a lot of complaints and I'm being very critical, it really does come from a place of love, because I don't know, like going into Persona 3, 4, or 5 and doing the social links and planning out my teams and even just fusing some guys into stronger guys, it feels like settling into a comfy armchair. It's a Persona has become a comfort game to me, and I will probably turn into a rabid slobbering fan when Persona 6 announces, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's green, and maybe they're in and maybe they're in Canada or something, but whatever they do, I'm gonna be fully
I'm not playing it
invested
if it's
on
in
day
Canada. I mean, if we're talking about James Bond and Thunderball, and I was going to talk about Memento, so we can just hold that till next time, then we're probably coming towards the end of the episode. But there's plenty more to talk about. Obviously, we managed to cover, I don't know, about 40 hours of content, most of it, without, I think, giving too many things a short shrift in less than an hour and 15 minutes, which is maybe going to be an all-time record for me. So that's good. I appreciate the two of you for kind of coming along on this with me and also doing it in a relatively short time frame, which is better than I normally do. So thank you.
We still have plenty of
welcome.
palaces and
Oh, yeah.
confidants and
Yep.
the whole
Events.
the whole post game to talk about, which I haven't
Yeah.
even gotten to yet. But it might be harder to keep part 2 under an hour 15.
Oh,
I would agree with that. Well, speaking of that, in 2 weeks, hopefully, I might push a week if we get real desperate, but hopefully in 2 weeks, we are going to be talking about the second half of Persona 5 Royal, including that new third semester, which is really the reason that I'm excited to play it. I want to see if maybe some of my concerns about the thematic blahness of this game get addressed by that. And also, I'm just excited to see, like, there's one character who I think kind of sucks in the original vanilla, who I always hear is like awesome now in that version. So we'll see. But then that's it for me for a while. I'll be out of the podcast. I'll be editing the show still. I'll be in the background. I'll be, paying attention, but mostly I'll be paying attention to my wife and I's new baby. So that's going to be the main thing that I will be doing until July after that. But that doesn't mean the podcast is stopping. So 2 weeks after Persona 5 Royal, there will be 2 episodes on Final Fantasy VIII. Something I'm very excited to listen to, but I am very excited that I don't have to play and also talk about.
High
Um,
five.
yeah, there are some people on that podcast who love that. I love hearing people talk about games that are weird and janky, and I'm not my favorite, but that they love. So I'm excited to listen to those 2 episodes. And then, very excitingly, one of our 2 panelists is going to be making his illustrious return as a host after Final Fantasy VIII. So, Sollosi, why don't you tell us what's coming after Final Fantasy VIII?
Oh, it's me and not Audra. Okay. Right. We've done many sort of top 10 list best of episodes on Retro Encounter, and we're bringing back that episode concept again, but this is for PS Wii 60 games. So if an RPG debuted on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, or Nintendo Wii, then it is eligible for that list. And myself and 2 others are going to be compiling it, similar to episodes we've done for the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Super Nintendo, and PlayStation 4. But this is for a whole era across 3 consoles. And that list was easier to make when I realized I didn't have to put DS or PSP in there.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure.
But I'll also say that 2 game companies feature extremely prominently on my list. I don't
at least think
know.
of one of them.
Beg pardon?
I can think of one of them.
Oh,
I'm not
well,
sure of the other off the top of my list.
Oh, you probably can think of both of them. It's not
Okay.
that hard.
One
But
of them starts with a B.
yeah, one starts with a B and one starts with an F.
Okay.
But
Oh yeah, I got
yeah.
that other one. Yeah, I got
But
you.
the I lost my train of thought. Oh no, there it's back. Yeah, so it's gonna be a top 10 PS Wii 60 games in I guess 4 weeks from now. And it'll be my first time hosting an episode since early 2025.
Yeah, I'm excited to listen to it, and I'm excited that you guys, that you and the 3 other panelists are putting that together, because that's an era that I don't feel I've played enough games to really meaningfully add to the conversation. Even though I finally checked off Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 recently, which I imagine will maybe feature partially on that episode.
Maybe.
possibly.
If you want to get, yeah, possibly. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us retro@rpgfan.com. You can also follow RPG Fan on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, otherwise known as X, Blue Sky, Twitch, YouTube. We're usually RPG Fan or RPG Fan.com in those places. You can also chat with us on the RPG Fan Discord, which Sollosi and I both check with some regularity. Maybe Sollosi more than I do. If you want to support us, you can also go to our shop. We have an RPG Fan shop where we sell things like t-shirts, mugs, things like that. It's hosted by TeePublic. It's on the website. It's rpgfan.com/shop as well. We also have 2 other fine podcasts. One is Random Encounter, hosted by John O'Logan, where he talks about usually current games, talks about usually for the people who reviewed current games. So you can hear Audra on that show a lot because she is a reviewer extraordinaire. You can also listen to Rhythm Encounter, which is about RPG music. It's the other Monday of every other Monday, usually hosted by our editor-in-chief, Mike Salbato. If you want to review us, well, you can review us wherever you listen to us right now. But we usually love feedback, especially of the 5-star variety. And let's talk about where to get in touch with the individual panelists, starting with you, Audra.
You can find me at email at audrab@rpgfan.com.
Awesome. And Sollosi?
You can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, or RPG Fans Discord. On all 3 places, I am at Evoker for Dogs, which is a reference to a different Persona game.
Yes, indeed. And if you want to get in touch with me, that RPG fan email for retro is good. I'm also ZachW@RPGFan.com. I usually check them at the same time, so I'll get your email either way eventually. The Discord, the podcast channel is, now that Sollosi's not posting them anymore, is a pretty dead channel. But if you want to come in there and chat with any of us,
post them semi often, but I fell off that wagon. I apologize.
You're totally fine. But my point is, if you post something in that podcast channel, I will see it eventually. I don't check it every day, but I check it often enough. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you in there. But anyway, thank the two of you so much for coming in and having a conversation about Persona 5 Royal. I thought it was a good time. And thank you, listeners. Good night and good luck.